Hey, what's up? Welcome to the pod. This week we have another artist from the 60s. This week we're doing the Yardbirds, and I'm really hyped to get into it. This was my suggestion, so yeah, let's shake, rattle, and roll into it.
All right, familiarity with the Yardbirds going into things? Steph?
When I was starting high school, I was getting into rock music for the first time. And I really, the Beatles were the first one, and I got into like all the British invasion bands. And the Yardbirds were like one of my big favorites when I was starting out. One of my first CDs ever was a Rhino Greatest Hits compilation of like 63 to 65, and I played that thing a lot. I love those songs. And then I went through a lot of years not listening to them, and then I recently got into them again, and I love them. Really interesting band. They really changed. Rock music. Very influential.
Alrighty, it's pretty safe to say I knew the Yardbirds the least going into this. I don't think I'd even heard a Yardbirds song before this week. I know a little bit of Jeff Beck's solo work, and I obviously know Zeppelin. I'm not too familiar with anything Clapton did either. I'll just throw this out there. They're pretty much a guitar band for me. I think that's the main focus pretty clearly. And yeah, I feel like I think I have a standard opinion. There are like no rankings for this band online. I found one YouTube video and that's about it. And yeah, I think it's gonna be an interesting band to get into. And yeah, Aidan, you?
I'd heard all of their albums all the way through. I'd heard about 95% of their non-album tracks, so I maybe knew them the most, I guess. And yeah, I mean, my thoughts changed a little bit, but I don't think anything drastic. It was just kind of a refresh because I'd heard all of these in the past. So yeah.
I will say, I had not heard that one before at all before this week. So apart from that, I've heard all of this stuff before.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'll go ahead and start this one off since I knew this band the least. We'll have Aidan follow, and Steph, you can wrap us out. Alrighty. At my bottom, I'm going with their final record, Little Games. Overall, I don't think that this record really has a ton to talk about. I think it leans a lot on the sort of psychedelic rock elements of the time period. They just think it's a little bit less interesting from them. I think they were also trying to beef their sound up from some of the stuff that came prior, and whenever they're going to that stuff, it kind of sounds like a discount version of what the Stones would do later. It's not a bad album overall, and I think that this might be one of Keith's better vocal performances, but there's one pretty glaring flaw on the record, and it's Jimmy Page. I don't think Jimmy Page is the guitarist for this band at all. I think he feels really out of place in regards to the rest of the group. And in comparison to Clapton and Beck, just simply isn't as naturally tuned to their style of 60s pop mixed with this sort of hard rock flair. I thought the title track was pretty cool, and most of the songs were pretty all right, except for Stealing, which for whatever reason has this weird, almost like fart sound effect that just sounds like garbage through the whole song. It's not a bad record, it's just kind of unremarkable. I'd probably give it like a 2.5, which I think is okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with some of what you said, but definitely differ in some respects. Before I say my number 4, I just want to say I don't agree with what you guys are saying at all. I don't think of the Yardbirds really as like a guitar band. Like that's not them to me. I like them for their songs. Like they could have a boring mediocre guitarist and I would still listen to them because I like Relf and McCarty probably the most in the band. But my number 4 for this is going to be their debut, For Your Love. I don't think it's bad. I think it's very clearly rushed. It's kind of like one of those classic British invasion debuts where it's like you have the hit single, now do an album really quick. I think it suffers from There's too much Clapton on it. I think Clapton's the worst guitarist of the three. In terms of style, I don't think he has nearly as much individuality as either Beck or Page. But I think a lot of the Beck stuff on here is pretty good. Favorite song's probably the title track, For Your Love. I just think it's a great song. I also really like the closer, how they do this like long 6-minute version of Hang On Sloopy. I think it's pretty cool how they kind of make it a more epic sound. And I think even some of the more generic bluesy covers are okay. So overall, it's a mixed bag, but I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5.
I definitely like Clapton more than Page in this band. Page is definitely a better guitarist outside of the Yardbirds, but just within the Yardbirds, I think Clapton fits their sound so much better. Page just really feels out of place to me, like I was saying on Little Games.
Maybe.
I disagree with that, but my last spot is Little Games. I have it at 3 out of 5. It's not a bad album, but it is, I don't know, it's very disappointing. It had the potential to be a really great album, but like the big problem is just the producer they ended up with. There was too much like label pressure because their label really wanted them to get more hits. Because like it was kind of a dry spell for the band after Jeff Beck left. But I think Page is a good guitarist for them. He was still young, but I think the production makes it not translate very well on record compared to what they sounded like in live performances. I think during this period, their live performances were more representative of what they were going for. But yeah, the songs are really hit and miss. It's like they're torn between being like a pop act like the Animals, and they're torn with like going into more psychedelic, boundary pushing experimentation. And yeah, the songs are just all over the place, but there's some good moments on there. My favorite track is White Summer. That's a really cool guitar instrumental, and it's cool to hear like the roots of Over the Hills and Far Away. And Glimpses is really good. I agree with what Adrienne said. I think Keith Relf's singing performance on this whole album is really strong. Yeah, I notice he kind of leans into like his cock English accent on a couple of tracks. That's pretty cool. It suits his style well. But worst track is definitely Stealing. It's a terrible cover. It's so dumb. The original was by the Memphis Jug Band from the 20s. Listen to that instead. It's better. I've noticed there's a lot of plagiarism. I guess people were just really lax about that back then. But Drinking Muddy Water is basically a Muddy Waters ripoff of Rollin' and Tumblin'. On Me, that's the reworked version of Shake for Me by Howlin' Wolf. Stealing is credited as a band original songwriting credit. But overall, this isn't one I'm going to be revisiting very often, even though I do like the more psychedelic moments. But it could have been better. It's just like if they were working with like a less pop-oriented producer, this could have been a real classic, I think. But it is what it is. Little Games, 3 out of 5. That's my bottom.
Why would you want to take credit for Stealing? It's just not a good song.
Yeah, I remember reading that album was very rushed. Like, I think the entire thing, like, I think most of the songs were recorded in like one take. And on the last track on the album, Little Soldier Boy, that isn't even a trumpet on it. It's one of the Yardbirds doing like an imitation vocal of a trumpet. Yeah. Like, it's not an actual trumpet. It's them like pretending to do one. Which is like, I don't know.
I gotta say, I do like Willie and the Poor Boys more than that album. I think I like all my 2.5 Creedence records more than that one, actually.
Oh, you won't get much argument there.
Yeah, it's not that good. It better be your number 3, Aidan. Anyways, moving on for me, I actually agree with you, is For Your Love. And I'm pretty conflicted. I didn't listen to this one first. I actually listened to Roger the Engineer. And I think that made me far more partial to Beck because I think he's clearly the best guitarist here. I think he just fits their sound a lot. I think that he is rip roaring through all these songs, and he just has such a great playing style that really lends itself to their sort of hard rock tinged 60s pop. Clapton isn't bad, but he clearly lacks the style of Even Page. I just think that he's sort of bluesier styles just fits in with this band a lot better. I think I Ain't Got You, A Certain Girl, and Good Morning Little Schoolgirl were just kind of okay. I think a lot of the songs are it's kind of like Steph was saying on some of their previous records, hit and miss. Those ones that I said were just okay. The title track and Gonna Hurry are both great tracks, and a lot of the other stuff is just pretty decent. I'm not really going to reach for it, but I think it's decent overall. I'd say about 3 stars on it for me.
Yeah, well, in terms of guitarist, I just want to say I think studio-wise, Beck is the best, but in terms of checking out their live stuff, I think Page sounded the best with them live. All right, so I'll go into my my number 3 is gonna be Roger the Engineer from 1966. I like this album a great deal. I don't want to, act like I don't like it. There's a couple songs that I think are kind of generic on it. Like I'm not big on like the Nazar Blue or some of the like very boring kind of blues stuff, but I think it's all self-written on this one. There's no covers, which I think is cool, and I like that they're kind of really leaning into their kind of like almost like medieval like dark sound they can get into sometimes with stuff like Turn Into Earth. I think is really good. I like the closer, Ever Since the World Began. That's a good one. I think Farewell's like a cool like piano interlude, and I really like Over Under Sideways Down, and He's Always There would be another one I really like. And overall, it's maybe their most cohesive album, but I'm kind of just that's not really huge in my judging. I'm kind of just judging more based on the material, and because of that, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5.
So you aren't too off base on that one.
That's also my number 3 spot. Roger the Engineer at 4 out of 5. This was the first album by them I ever heard, because it's in the 1001 albums book, and I think it's on the Stone list of greatest albums of all time. I think it's their most well-known album, maybe with Rave Up, perhaps. But I have a soft spot for this one. Over Under Down was the first Yardbirds song I ever heard, and that was the song that really made me kind of perk up my ears and say, "Ooh, that sounds cool." Because like, man, that intro is just amazing. With that guitar, with like the loud sustain and stuff, that was like never really attempted anything like that. Period. Like bands like the Kinks and the Who were loud and stuff, but it's with the Yardbirds you kind of get the beginnings of like metal guitar tones, like amps turned up really loud, Gibson with a lot of sustain and gain turned up a lot of all the way, and it just sounds really cool. The first half of this album is really, really good, and then it kind of falls a little bit flat on the second half, but the first side gets just like the good energy going from the get-go. Lost Woman is a song. I really love that one. Over Under Sideways Down was a big hit on the album. It's brilliant as well. I like the Nazar Blue. It's interesting to hear Jeff Beck sing lead vocal. I love I Can't Make Your Way. That's a really great song. It's a very simple like harmony line and sing-song melody, and then in the middle of the guitar break, it goes into a raga thing. G level just like leaps up, and it's really, really cool. And then technically this album isn't really an original album pulled all the way, because Rack My Mind is again another blues rip off of Scratch My Back by Slim Harpo, and Jeff's Blues is also a complete rip off of Guitar Boogie by Chuck Berry. Yeah, the second side is just really, this band is really inconsistent songwriting wise, because Keith Relf, he's a great singer, but he's very limited in his vocal range. And when you don't have really strong melodies that you can sing within that vocal range, the songs just fall flat. And that's a problem I find with a lot of these album tracks, is that the second side was largely unmemorable to me, but there's some interesting experimentation going on, and I like the sleeve design a lot. I used to have it on CD for a long time. It's got these cute little cartoons by Chris Dreja. Liner notes are quite funny by Jim McCarty. But it's a cool little album. A little bit overrated in my opinion, but I give it 4 out of
5. Yeah, that's my number 2. And I think that this is a pretty big step up from For Your Love for me. It's really good, but I'm kind of mixed, and this is kind of an issue I just have with the band as a whole. They are always at odds between their more hard rock stuff and their 60s pop stuff. It's always super weird, because when they're shredding, I think it's clearly their best material. I think by far, because this is a guitar band. They're all about Beck. They're all about Clapton, and whenever they're able to showcase themselves, it just is magnificent. And I think it's some of the best 60s rock out there. This is a weird comparison that I thought of because I was listening to her a lot over this past week. It kind of reminds me a lot of issues I had in the 80s with Pat Benatar, because she always also has that weird divulge into her hard rock elements and her 80s pop. And I think it's a much better blend, because pop and rock were much better at blending each other by that point. Overall on this record, I think Happeningness 10 years ago, The Nazar Blue, and Jeff's Boogie are all fantastic tracks. But like I was saying, the 60s pop stuff is pretty hit or miss. What Do You Want is okay. Psycho Daisies was kind of cool. And I wasn't big on Farewell or He's Always There, but the songs where they're shredding are just total killer. It's a solid record throughout, and I'd probably give it another spin or 2, but as of right now, it's still 3.5 for me. I think it's a pretty good album.
I want to mention real quick, the reissues added Happenings 10 years ago and Psycho Daisies onto the track list. So,
okay.
If
those bonus.
2 songs were on the original album, I'd give it a higher score, because Happenings especially, I think, is one of their all-time greatest moments.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, in terms of like their shredding stuff, like my thing is like, it's good, but I could get it elsewhere. I don't think there's any other band that gives you their brand of like dark raga, like medieval, like, you know, that kind of sound that they have like smothered over their albums. So that's what I like more, because it feels like, I feel like I could just get like shredding from like the Stones or the Animals or something like that.
I think it's kind of my point to call you out here and saying you just aren't that big on these guitar focused tracks and just like guitar interludes as a whole.
Yeah,
told us.
No, I'm not. And I've made that apparent.
Well, you're a drummer, so what do you expect?
I'm not a musician.
Maybe
so.
if they had drum solos everywhere, I'd be singing a different tune.
I wouldn't mind some of those.
Yeah, but my number 2 is going to be Little Games. I think this album is way overhated. Like every review I've seen recently on it says it's like a disappointment. I don't really get that. I think some of the songs, I totally disagree. I don't think Stealing is a bad song. I think the only song on this album I don't like is Drinking Muddy Water, just because it's boring and nothing happens in the whole song. But I think every other song I either like or love. So I would give it, well, I'll say, I'll just kind of give a short review and then I'll say what I'd rate it. I think there's a lot of great stuff on here. I really love White Summer. I think Keith Relf's ballad Only the Black Rose is really good. I think a lot of their kind of more poppy stuff, I think it works on here. Like I think Little Games is good. I like No Excess Baggage and Tinker Tailor Soldier Sailor. I think Glimpses is a really strong track as well. Yeah, overall, I don't really get why this album is treated the way it was. I agree it should have been stronger, because there's a lot of tracks they were doing live that could have spiced it up. Like if they had put Dazed and Confused on it, it would have been, amazing, because they really didn't change the arrangement from the Yardbirds to Zeppelin, or maybe some of their they did more jamming material. It might have been better, but I think as is, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Sorry, I just had to do my stealing impersonation there. Yeah, you're way too
It's
high
a
on that
better
record.
song than Drinking Muddy Water. I'm sorry, it's a better song.
This is like your take on
you can't get-
Effigy.
That song is so boring. Nothing happened in the entire song. Just
I don't disagree with you, but like stealing just sucks.
filler.
The original
okay.
is a really good
I
record, I think.
It's catchy though. It has a melody.
I don't like the melody.
Oh, you're probably the biggest fan of that record on the planet, Aidan. Not gonna lie.
The one YouTube video I saw online of Yardbirds rating had that as their lowest studio, just so you know.
It's overhated. I mean, yeah, it's a comfortable 4.5.
Oh, cool that you like it. I wanted to like it more than I did for what it's worth, but my number 2 spot is For Your Love. I have it at 4 out of 5. I mentioned before, one of my first CDs was that Rhino compilation. It had basically almost all of these songs on there, so I knew most of these pretty well. I think 5 Live Yardbirds is a bit stronger debut. I would rate that higher than this if you were including, but it's all right. My favorite tracks, For Your Love is a classic, one of their biggest hits. I Wish You Would, the cover of an old blues song by Billy Boy Arnold, that's really great. One of the best Clapton songs. And apart from that, I prefer the original versions most of these covers, but this album introduced me to a lot of cool material and artists I'd never heard of before, so that's cool. I'd rate it higher if there was more Jeff Beck on it, because the difference between the two guitarists is pretty dramatic. Eric Clapton, I was reading some history on the McCarty, the drummer, says that Eric Clapton, having him in the band, he wasn't really the type of person. He was much more serious and dour all the time compared to the other band members. He wasn't the type of person like hang out with like the rest of the guys after the show. So I don't know. He feels a bit and he's also young too. But I feel like his biggest problems that he strikes me as such a serious and like person who's like has a lot on his mind, but feels like he's unable to like really translate that through his guitar playing. And I will say that as far as like guitar players at the time, and he was 19 or whatever, he's leagues ahead nearly every other British guitarist at the time. But I will say that if you were to judge him on a technical scale compared to like an American guitarist at the time, like Freddie King or Earl Hooker or Magic Sam, it's not close. The only difference is that Clapton used considerably more volume than they did, which isn't to say that he's a bad musician or anything. I just don't think Freddie King or whatever I think was playing circles around him during this time period. But Jeff Beck, on the other hand, is very extroverted, and he really makes that guitar sing on his tracks. Like right away, you go from For Your Love, which is a fine pop number, but immediately afterward, you get a cover of I'm Not Talking, a jazz song by Mose Allison, and man, right away, he just pulls out all the stops. It's like watching a fireworks show or something. It was always. I think this was a band that really made me really fall in love with like guitar and made it like kind of my in. Yeah, I think the Yardbirds are one of the best guitar bands of all time, no doubt, easily. Sure, they're similar to like the Rolling Stones and stuff, but the thing that makes Jeff Beck important was that you had guitarists in the 50s or whatever who were shredders, but not in a rock context. You had Les Paul and Chet Atkins. They were more song stylists. So Jeff Beck was influenced by those guys, but he added it in like a pop rock setting, which wasn't really done before. Like George Harrison and Keith Richards are playing pretty, much ideas. It's more for the song or whatever. So the Yardbirds really set the stage for what was the standard for hard rock and metal in the next decade or so, when like virtuosity and technicality is like a really big important draw to the music. So that's the historical significance of that band, I think. But overall, it's a good debut. Songs are fine. It just feels more like a compilation, honestly, than an album, which is my main issue. Five Live Yardbirds was kind of like a better representation for Clapton. If we were including Five Yardbirds, I'd give that a 4.5. But For Your Love gets a 4 for me. Still good though.
Alrighty, I'm really excited. We have our first ever triple winner. And pretty clearly the number one is having a rave up with the Yardbirds, right? And I'm going to throw it out there. Jeff Beck, he is so good in this band. I've listened to a couple of his solo efforts, and they've never really hit me in the way that he does in the Yardbirds. He is such a fantastic guitar player. It makes me want to listen. I have this Jeff Beck box set. It makes me want to legitimately sit down and do something I never thought I would do, which is listen to a Jeff Beck instrumental record, because he's just such a good player. Okay, back to the Yardbirds, because I guess I should talk about them and not just Jeff Beck. This is a really solid record, and I think that there's a much better balance here than on their other records between the pop influence and just the straight ahead shredding. I'm a Man, You're a Better Man Than That, and Evil Hearted You, they're all just fantastic tracks. The playing by Beck, as I've been saying through this whole time, it's just so good. I'm not a guitar player, but even I can tell he's just absolutely nailing these tracks on every level. I love the guitar sound through the entire catalog with Beck. Clapton, he's fine, and Page, I've made my points. He's just not the guitarist for this band. But Jeff Beck is just the perfect blend of just genuine style and just amazing classic rock guitar playing. However, the 60s pop stuff is always going to be an issue with me. And as soon as you get into the live stuff of Clapton, there's a clear decline. I think on that side, aside from Respectable, there isn't a real standout there. And it feels a little inconsistent in the track listing because of it. I kind of wish that the first half and the live stuff were more blended together and more seamless with one another. I could see this growing with me in time, but as of right now, on a first listen, I'm just going to go a strong 3.5, like a 7.9 for me.
Yeah, that's my number one as well. I think it's just clearly their best release. I think every single song on side one is a total knockout. I think Still I'm Sad is amazing. I really love Heart Full of Soul and Evil Hearted You. Mr. You're a Better Man Than I. It's just stacked full of great stuff. Yeah, I mean, and there's only one original on it, which is Still I'm Sad, but I think it's a very strong song even despite that. They go for this very go for like an old English sound or something. But yeah, it's very dense. It's very kind of like raga centric around the first half of the album, I'd say. Has a very kind of exotic sound, I guess you could say. But I agree, side two isn't like the best thing in the world, but I still think it's great. I mean, I think Smokestack Lightning, they really kick it into high gear on that. I think Howlin' Wolf said it was the definitive version of his song, and I think he was right. Here 'Tis and Respectable are also really good. I don't know why they repeat I'm a Man. I think the Beck one's better. I think the Clapton one's okay, but yeah, I think there's just so much perfect stuff on this album. Yeah, I don't think there's a weak song on it, even though I think side two isn't as like immaculate as side one. I'm gonna give this one 5 out of 5. This is probably my favorite album of 65. I'd have to think on that. Maybe Beach Boys Today, but I would have to sit down and kind of weigh the two. But overall, it's a flawless release, and I'm very glad it exists.
Okay, come on. I think that this is a very good album. But it is not better than Rubber Soul.
Yeah,
It is not better than Mr. Tambourine
it is.
Man.
They're both 5s, but this is a comfortably higher 5 than Rubber Soul.
What about Mr. Tambourine Man?
Nah, it's better than that. Come on.
No.
It's like a 4.5.
Tambourine Man is a 4.5, but that means a lot more from me.
Yeah, my number one, of course, is Having a Rave Up. I also give it 5 out of 5. I don't rate it high. I wouldn't put it on like my top 10 albums of 65 years though, but it's a really good album. Also, it's 94 degrees right now, so if I look sweaty or whatever, that's why. But yeah, Having a Rave Up is a classic. That compilation I mentioned pretty much had this entire album on it, apart from a couple of the live tracks. So these are all songs I know really well. Side 1 is just all bangers. Like, it's every song just A+. You're a Better Man Than I, really strong lyric, great song, good vocal performance by Keith Relf. Aidan did a really good drum cover of that song today, and he sounded very good. Evil Hearted You, I love that song. Really, one of my favorite of their singles. I'm a Man is a cover of the Bo Diddley song, and that one was one of my favorites when I was younger. It's just like I love the rave up in the middle. They really great group dynamics in that one. Still I'm Sad is really one of the more interesting songs I've heard by a band from that time. I've never heard another band try to do like a Gregorian chant style with like the harmonies. It's very, very interesting. Really good. I love the way they fuse like world music, for lack of a better term, to like their songwriting. And Heart Full of Soul, that's a classic, one of their best songs. Definitely one of their more famous songs. That riff is just so good. Yeah. And I love the bongo percussion. It sounds really good. Train Kept a Rollin' is a cover of an old rhythm and blues song from like the late 40s by Tiny Bradshaw. And then there was a rockabilly cover by Johnny Burnett and the Rock and Roll Trio. This is the arrangement that the Yardbirds did, recorded in Sam Phillips' Sun Records Studios in Memphis, Tennessee. They take it and they turn the volume up to 11, and it's an all-time classic. I want to mention they appeared in a 1966 movie called Blow Up, and they did a rework version of the song for copyright reasons called Stroll On. But it's a great performance. Michelangelo Antonioni, the director, kind of latched on to like the existential vibe of this band and like the primal nature of like the intense sound that they were created, especially in live settings. And it's a really great moment where they perform that song in the movie. Worth checking out. And then side 2 is kind of like a greatest hits moment of Five Live Yardbirds, which is fine. Smokestack Lightning is definitely the best song on side 2. I don't believe the Howlin' Wolf. I've seen that Howlin' Wolf quote so many times, but it's never like cited. There's never any like sources listed. So I kind
Maybe I
of
just made it up. It's possible, honestly.
Someone definitely made that up. But it's a good cover nonetheless. And Respectable is a great Isley Brothers cover. I'm a Man, don't know why it's on there twice, but it's interesting to compare the two, I guess. And then Here 'Tis is also a Bo Diddley cover. And I like the live stuff. It's a cool vibe. You know, it feels like they sound really good. It's kind of fun, makes you see what a live show by them was like. And they were really from what I've read, they were one of the first like bands of that time to really do extended like jamming in their performances and stuff like that. So it's another thing they kind of started that really caught on with everybody. And yeah, it's worth noting like the South during this time, the Yardbirds were really, really huge in America because they have like a really good. It's shredding music, but there's also like Keith Relf's vocals or whatever. It's not like so unpretentious, you know, like, and if he can sing, so can I, you know, there's charm like the rest of the band, and a lot of the garage bands from that era really latched on to that. So it kind of like really changed the game as far as I was concerned. And yeah, it's just a very good record. Really enjoyable moments, great songs. I was going to give it 4 out of 5, but I got to bump it up a notch just because the songs are just too classic. And I found myself really enjoying this one. So solid 5 for having a rave up with the Yardbirds.
I can't go that high. It was released in the 60s and was made by the Birds. I mean, what can I say? It's my curse. I like 60s music, but I find the records oftentimes can be kind of spotty for me, simply because we were still, a lot of the stuff pre-Pet Sounds has that issue where it really does feel like a collection of songs.
Well, your tastes are very plebeian, so there's that to take account.
To be fair, most of my top 10 albums ever come from the aughts, so I'm on totally different wavelengths from you both in regards to that.
Aughts is just a music wasteland. I don't think anything good was made then.
Did you mean to say Graceland?
At this point, I'm just trying to make you mad. That's what you...
Yeah. Overall, closing thoughts on the Yardbirds. They're a band from the 60s that I like. That's a big compliment for me. I could see a rave up going up to 4 stars, but I don't see myself going back to a lot of their records personally. I don't know. I could see myself picking up like a greatest hits or something in the future, but I feel like album-wise, they aren't the best. And I just remembered, I'm blanking on the song title, but there was one track on Little Games. And I hated how it was mixed because like on the entire left channel, there was a random like bongo effect and it sounds horrible. I hate it so much. Left channel, right channel was my least favorite thing in all of music. It's awful.
Should have just had it on mono.
I was trying to listen to the mono version. It's not on title.
Oh, okay.
I wish it was on title.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just turned my phone on mono.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, I agree with this might be a hot take, but I also agree with Adrienne for once that I definitely like Jeff Beck better in the Yard than his solo stuff. He's very good in his solo stuff, but I just like hearing him in a more condensed miniature, like 3-minute format, as opposed to like hearing like 10-minute songs all the time. And great band.
Yeah,
I would say
I agree.
if you can find that Rhino compilation, I forget the title or whatever, I'd say you're probably better sticking to that than most of the album. It's basically got all the highlights of For Your Love and 5 Live Yardbirds and Rave Up all together, and you'd be fine if you just have that, honestly.
You said greatest hits of Volume 1, 64 to 66?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact title, but I'll find a link to it or something.
Nice, that stops right before Little Games.
Yeah, but then you miss some of the. They had some good singles around Little Games, and they had some. Like they had Puzzles, which is a really good one. Like they had some good non-album stuff around the same time. That wasn't that similar to Little Games.
I won't lie, I didn't get a chance to really spin through any of their non-album stuff. Just not something I typically do for a lot of bands. I might give it a chance or two if you guys have some really remarkable tracks that I need to get to.
Yeah, I could put together a playlist.
You should at least check out that song. That's
For sure.
really good.
Well, I think we basically said all there is to say about the Yardbirds. 4 albums, but we've been here for about 10 minutes each at minimum.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's just close it out with our next artist. Steph, it's your pick. Go on.
All right. Next video I have from Memphis, Tennessee, a quartet of Beatle-loving youth, one of which was a former Box Top, none other than Big Star. Short discography, but a good one.
I don't know a ton of Big Star, but I know their cover of Femme Fatale, and I think it is awful.
I know a few. I like most of what I've heard.
No, you don't like anything, so what's the surprise there?
Hey, that's not true. I like the aughts. I said that earlier. Let's see their comeback record be my favorite.
Oh my god.
I'll really kill Aidan at that point, and he's not even a big Star fan, it seems.
Yeah, it would just be the principles. I don't think that'll happen though. Like everything
Oh.
I've seen from their reunion makes it sound not good.
Oh, there's no chance. I think I might want to ruin my chances with the band, and I'll start with that one, and I'll just work my way back to #1 record.
Oh no, don't.
Why would you do that
Don't
to
do
yourself?
I'll let the cat out of the bag here. I'm not a big power pop fan. It's just not a genre that oftentimes can grip me in the way that I want to. I listened to the debut Cheap Trick record today. I thought it was good, but none of the songs really grip me too much.
Well, it has melody and it has personality for one thing, so that's already a no-go for Adrian.
I mean, I said I don't like power pop, but I got this to light right next to me, so.
Actually, I was gonna make a joke, but I haven't heard enough Weezer to make a joke, so I'll just leave it at saying it looks cringy.
Okay, back to the Yardbirds. Great band, one of the best of their time, and I'm really grateful for you having us do this, Aidan. Catch us next time with Big Star, and I hope you all have a great night. We'll see you. Bye.
Ciao.